Welcome, friends,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
I'm Uncle Dan.
and I am Uncle Doug.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
That's right. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles, and with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields.
We're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get the one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Well, guys,
Hello.
here we are. We have made it to another round number, which is, believe me, when you get to be my age, that begins to take on a greater significance. We are at episode 180, which is great.
That means that, you know what? 180, that's turning around. Uncle Doug, tie-in, boom.
What? Well, that's going to be very significant in a little while for y'all, but it's a fun show, snappy show. It's got dancing, it's got music, it's got numismology. What is that? Coin collecting.
Yeah, right.
Whatever that's called. Yeah, it's got everything.
Numismatism.
It's got a little bit of everything. So I am going to talk about what goes on after dark.
And then I am going to talk about two of the greatest rock albums of 1983, and then for some reason, Sufi Islam.
Yeah, exactly. And I am going to talk about everybody's favorite scary number.
Yeah. Dan is going to do the numbers. And we want to give a quick shout out to our friend Cindy Lynch, who had a big loss this week. We're very sorry. Love you. Hope you're okay. Travel safe to getting home. And we also, again, we have to clear the air this week.
Uh-oh.
We got the emails. We all apologies to Quicksand Americans. Apparently Quicksand, we know it exists, and we apologize for that. But it's changed. It's affected a lot of lives out there, Dan, that I didn't realize. So
we did not know how deep that well ran.
Yes, we are not anti-Quicksand in any way.
I'm anti-Quicksand.
I'm anti-Quicksand. I'm just not anti-Quicksand Americans. The people who have suffered from its sucking grasp. So
Wait, we're finding, between shawls and quicksand, we're finding landmines all over the place.
Oh man, it's a dangerous road we walk.
It's hard to live in a woke time.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. So there you go. Without any further bullshit, let's get on to the bullshit.
Woohoo.
Hey, Uncle Doug.
Hi.
Hi. Listen, I've been looking for a new drag name for an act that I'm putting together, and and I don't feel comfortable with the with sort of puns. So I'm just looking for
Your Anita cocktail, your head of lettuce, that sort of thing.
Did
Right,
the
exactly.
Thomas Jefferson estate finally come after you?
Yeah. You don't want to piss off Big Jefferson. So I don't know. Maybe Uncle Mark? Maybe you can help me out.
Well,
with that.
I do. Let me see if I can get you into. How about the Night Hag?
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, I'm already using that one. I've already got that.
Okay. Well, let me explain a little bit about who this is.
Is the Night Hag the fighter of the Day Hag?
The little Sunny in Philadelphia deep cut for everybody. But today I want to introduce it this way. Today I want to talk about how a very real psychological thing that occurs very commonly across the world that can and has helped supernatural beliefs stick around well past their expiration dates. And I want to begin this journey with an excerpted reading from a short story by a legendary author, me. This is one of many tales from my almost impossibly idyllic youth here on the verdant southern shore of the Great Salt Lake. And now, if you will indulge me, fellas. And so we just jump into the action already in progress.
Oh, yes.
One such authority figure, Aunt Ethel, would occasionally brave the demon-haunted wastelands and travel southward to darken our door. A Canadian relative on my mother's side, Ethel saw herself as a spiritual warrior par excellence, or at least someone Satan saw Satan himself saw fit to torment on a near daily basis. She would gather us vulnerable, tender souls in the cluttered basement family room to regale us with stories of her combat. Once, she told us, she was driving the family Winnebago loaded with her sleeping children through the Canadian Midwest. She said she went into a trance when Satan flew in front of her windshield in the form of an owl, and she froze, driving in a straight line for hundreds of miles. She watched every exit disappear behind her, and only the intercession of Jesus and her physical might, with which, she explained, she was able to lift the Winnebago off the roadway by the steering wheel and fly it off an exit to safety, and saved her life and that of her blissfully unconscious family. Do you remember Aunt Ethel, Doug?
Vaguely. I think
She was loony. Another time, she told us with all the passion of someone truly reliving the moment about Lucifer's nocturnal visit to her bedroom. She had been minding her own business, enjoying her chaste and colorless Mormon dreams, when the wily Satan jumped from the high turnbuckle and executed a flawless knee drop right on her chest. She tried to scream, but no air would come to her under his crushing hooven weight. She said she could feel her ribs breaking, her lungs bursting into bloody pulps. "Oh, Ethel, how did you survive?" I practically screamed. Somehow, even in the very moment of her death, by what any medical examiner would surely label a classic devil side, brave Ethel summoned enough air to blurt, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave." Then a little bit louder, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave." It was working. Oh, dear heavens, it was working. At this point in the retelling, Ethel was bouncing up and down on our tattered couch, pounding its cat-scratched arm like an ER surgeon trying to restart a Satan-arrested heart. "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave." Ethel was saved. She would live to menace the darkened roadways of Saskatchewan in her flying Winnebago once again. So, my Canadian supernatural sleep warrior, Aunt Ethel, to her mind, had her sleep interrupted on the regular by Satan himself. But if she had been from Newfoundland rather than Saskatchewan, she may have described her nocturnal intruder as the night hag. If she lived in the Islamic world, specifically Egypt, she would call it a jinn. That's jinn with a J, not the jinn with a G that visits Uncle Doug every night.
Right.
Or if she was Cambodian, she would call it the ghost pushes you down. If she was Italian, she might call it the pandafecce, the emuntadore, or the manachiciccio, or the kanishibari if she was Japanese, or maybe if she was a different kind of Christian in an earlier time, she would call this frightening being a succubus. You see, people all around this flat earth experience what my poor haunted auntie did all the time. A terrifying inability to move, the feeling of being crushed under the weight of a malevolent evil, and a form taking shape out of the darkness. Now, are we as a global community so haunted by legions of demons intent on squishing us in the night?
Obviously, yes.
Probably. Or rather...
Very easy answer.
Yeah, so that's the end of the segment. We're all done.
Right.
Dan has his drag name.
Moving on.
Or rather, are we a big, broad human family with a shit ton of fleshy hardware and software that occasionally gets a little fritzy? The human brain is so fucking complex with so much that can go wrong. It's amazing so much actually goes right as often as it does.
That's true.
Perhaps rather than a pantheon of culturally congruent boogiesmen, maybe there's just a certain percentage of us that experience the fairly common physiological condition known simply as sleep paralysis. People who report these nocturnal attacks universally experience them at one of two very specific moments during their sleep cycle. Either just as they're falling asleep or, more commonly, in the first moments of waking up. Now, I've had a few instances of sleep paralysis. One was 20 years ago-ish, and it scared the living shit out of me. And a couple very recently, after I knew what it was, and they were also weird, but since I knew what was happening, I tried to have a little fun with them. So, have you guys ever had it? Sleep paralysis?
I've never had it.
I don't think so.
I've heard of it, but
Yeah.
no, I've never had it.
So what does science think is happening in these moments? Well, one of the cycles we normally go through when we sleep is REM, rapid eye movement sleep. And that's when we're dreaming. Now, evolution has given us a little gift to keep us from hurting ourselves or others during our dream state. we essentially become paralyzed. This prevents us from responding physically to whatever yard sale of images and sounds we're experiencing in our dreams, right? It's actually quite clever. It's lucky we have it. And while this keeps us safe under normal circumstances, if there's a little misfire in the old thinky meat, wakefulness and REM paralysis can overlap. So your brain becomes partially or fully conscious before your body does. So for people unused to the sensation of paralysis, this results in the feeling of being held down. Panic instantly ensues, but conscious control over breathing is also shut off at that point. It's all automatic. So the wanting to draw a huge breath in a moment of panic is not responded to, so one can feel like they're either being crushed or strangled. The panic is a mental state called threat hypervigilance, where the amygdala, an ancient part of the brain that is basically the fear center, goes into hyperdrive. Way back in episode 20, Dan talked about the phenomenon called pareidolia. And that's the thing that happens when you're, for instance, walking alone at night and your brain begins to make you conjure faces out of the darkness, right? You start seeing these patterns. It can be frightening, but it's an evolutionary development that likely gave us some small advantage in trying to detect a threat hiding in the tall grass. Well, during threat hypervigilance, in our greatest moment of fight or flight, the pareidolia phenomenon cranks up to 11. So people laying there in an existential panic, suddenly unable to move, very quickly construct faces, voices, or whole figures out of the darkness. In my last two experiences, there was a deep animal-like growling behind me as I tried to push it away by rolling onto my back.
Interesting.
Now, I don't want to downplay how traumatic these experiences can be for people. They are fucking terrifying, and they can last anywhere from just a few seconds, with some going as long as 6 minutes for people.
Oh, my God.
That would be terrifying.
Of total paralysis, right?
Yeah, if you don't know what the hell's going on, that would be just
terror.
Shock.
So my first one that I mentioned was about 20 years ago in a hotel in Moab. I think I've told you about this, Doug.
Yeah, I think so.
It was the middle of the night, and I woke to an incredibly intense buzzing sound. I was unable to move and felt unable to breathe. There was a tiny bit of light from the parking lot coming through the yellow curtains, and the buzzing felt like it was coming from the darkest corner of the room. So my eyes darted in that direction, and in the darkness, I saw kind of materialize a very thin form with a long neck bent to one side, with a small head peering over at me. Its skin looked like a liquid, dark, metallic material. I tried to jump up, but I couldn't. The buzzing became more intolerable until finally I could move, and in my panicked reach for the lamp, I knocked it off the nightstand. So I had to jump out of bed and fumble with it until I got it on. There was nothing there, right?
Right.
So needless to say, I didn't sleep a wink for the rest of the night. It was like 3 a.m, and I just turned on the TV and stayed up the rest of the night. I even asked the front desk the next morning if anyone had any, complaints about the room. She looked at me funny and said, no complaints. Well, what I know now that I didn't know then is that my REM paralysis got some of its peanut butter on the chocolate of my brain being suddenly awake, and my panicked brain painted a malevolent culprit into the darkness, giving me the fright of my life. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Despite my loony aunt's successful attempts to scare the shit out of baby Mark with her nightly combats with the devil, your Uncle Mark is not a religious man. So my brain didn't paint Satan or any Baphomet-looking demon into the corner. If anything, my projected intruder was more of an alien. So
interesting.
Maybe I just recently watched Fire in the Sky or Communion or something like that. But it's largely true that sleep paralysis hallucinations show you what you have been conditioned to fear the most.
Right.
In the United States, a significant number of people who believe there is a malevolent force behind their sleep paralysis episodes attribute them to extraterrestrials. And in fact, this may explain people earnestly feeling they experienced alien abductions. Culture and religious training train the imagination. Now, there was never a single reported case of alien abduction in the United States before the sci-fi TV series The Outer Limits aired an episode about a fictional alien abduction in 1961.
Really? Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, never a single report. And shortly after that, a couple, one or both of whom may have experienced sleep paralysis, reported being abducted, and their description of their captors closely matched the rubber alien heads on the TV show.
Huh.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
That makes a lot of sense.
A TV show about their alleged experiences was made and aired in 1975, and reports of alien abductions went up in the U.S. 2,500%.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So people who see aliens as a result of their sleep paralysis come to believe they are being redeposited in their homes after a night of probing. A lot of people talk about seeing a figure. This is fascinating. A lot of people talk about seeing a figure that they call the Hat Man during sleep paralysis. Worldwide, his description is stunningly similar. Tall, lean, with a fedora accompanied by a terrifying aura of evil. But he was never reported before 1984. So what happened in 1984? Wes Craven released his horror phenomenon, A Nightmare on Elm Street, in which an often silhouetted Freddy Krueger is a dead match for descriptions of the Hat Man. And remember, in the movies, Freddy comes for you in your sleep.
Right.
So terrifying images people experience as children or teenagers can linger long afterwards. Which leads to another interesting fact I found in the research. In an international study, researchers found that in largely atheist Denmark, only 17% of those who experienced sleep paralysis fears thought that whatever was behind it could or would kill them. But in the more religious Egypt, over 50% of people did. In Egypt, the phenomenon is attributed to jinn, which are basically Islamic demons who are bent on killing people.
It's where the term genie comes from.
That's right.
A jinn.
Yeah. And they're actually pre-Islamic. They existed before Islam, but they got adopted. And it seems that fearing sleep paralysis might trigger further instances.
Oh, no.
So fear may become a contributing factor in creating a feedback loop of more and more terrifying experiences, as they think it's doing to people in Egypt. And this can be totally devastating to people. People have ruined their functional lives trying not to fall asleep for days at a time.
Oh, no.
They've developed traumatic mental conditions. One guy I read sold his house immediately because he was too afraid to fall asleep in it ever again. Even suicides are attributed to the trauma that this can cause. There are both men and women who are 100% sure they've been physically raped by whatever demonic force their cultural context made them believe attacked them.
Wow.
And like when Dan did a very fine job discussing the religiously confirming mental disorder temporal lobe epilepsy in episode 169, sleep paralysis is very commonly a terrorizing confirmation of religious belief.
Right.
Just like it was for my poor Aunt Ethel. In pre-scientific times, or for people who aren't interested in or even still reject science, I'm looking at you, pandemic-ravaged America, what other possible explanation could there be? But it's not jinns or the Newfoundland night hag or even Beelzebub. It's a little software glitch in our amazing but still evolving mess of a brain. So that's sleep paralysis, which is really a very spooky thing if you have it. But once you understand what it is, it still sucks. But it's not the devil.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you talk about the abduction narrative and all that sort of thing. It makes a lot of sense to me that you're waking up out of your deep sleep, whatever dream you were having in that moment.
Exactly right.
Gets tied directly into what's happening in your paralysis state. And suddenly you can have that could go in all kinds of crazy directions.
Yeah, you jump in your internal narrative from the dream state to consciousness like that.
Yeah.
Right, and so that doesn't mean that the dream state is necessarily over. You may not only is pareidolia at work, and you're creating images in the darkness to try to figure out what to focus your fear on, right, and what to respond to.
Right.
You may still be in the narrative of whatever that dream was. So it's possible you were dreaming about aliens, and if you're scared of them, and then suddenly there they are in your room, and you can't move.
Yeah,
well, and if you're in the middle of a scary dream about aliens, that fear thing that you were talking about is heightened.
Yeah.
So that's probably going to increase the chances that you're going to have the night terror there, or the paralysis, and then boom, it all feeds on itself.
Well, it stands to reason that there could be a another side to this coin, because I've never had sleep paralysis, but I have on not many occasions in my life, but like been running in my dream or slipped and fallen in my dream, and I've kicked my legs up. I knocked a shelf full of books onto myself one time. I've knocked shit off the nightstand, and this doesn't happen often, but where it's maybe my paralysis is lifted before I'm out of my dream state.
Yeah. Well, there's another phenomenon, and I can't remember what it's called, that specifically has to do with the sense of falling.
Right.
That wakes you up.
Right.
And they think that may come from when we lived in trees, when we slept in trees, to keep us from falling out of the tree unconscious, right? So I can't remember what that's called, but yeah, it's I didn't realize that you were generally fully paralyzed during your dream.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is interesting too, because we've talked about this many times. Is what would you do? A question posed by a religious person to an atheist: what would you do if you saw a vision of the Virgin Mary or of Jesus? And the first thing I would do is drive or hopefully get someone to drive me to a hospital,
right?
Because I think it's easy to assume, and oftentimes correct, that these things are issues with the brain chemistry.
Well, look, I'm try to be as rational a person as I can. And I was an atheist when this first thing happened to me 20 years ago. And I'm telling you, that thing was standing in my room as clearly as if you would be standing in my room.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? I saw it. I saw the thing standing there. And now I know that I was projecting it into the darkness, but it was terrifying. And if you look at someone like our Aunt Ethel, this became one of the defining things about her life. Right? She would always tell us these stories whenever we saw her. She believed the devil was as physically real as you or me, and was in her room frequently.
Just haunting the shit out of some old lady for no good reason.
In Saskatoon for no good reason. Leave the old ladies in Saskatoon alone, you son of a bitch.
Right?
So anyway, that's sleep paralysis.
Crazy.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, let's move on.
Dream on. Well, Uncle Daniel.
Hello.
If you're like me,
and I am.
And you are. We're more alike than different. You love the pop disco hits of the 1980s.
Who doesn't?
Right. And because I know what you're thinking, and you know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of Dead or Alive's 1983 smash hit, You Spin Me Right Round, Baby, Right Round.
Like a record, baby.
Which was so monotonous, it made it impossible to forget.
Yes, indeed. It was. Matter of fact, it will now. There is a group of our listeners that will not get that out of their head for a good long time.
I actually hate that song.
I actually might be able to help them get that out of their heads.
Oh, good.
Okay.
By implanting something worse?
Exactly. Well,
is this a segment about Baby Shark?
Well, dear uncles, I agree with Mark. 1983 was a seminal year for pop disco rock anthems. So I got my idea for this week's segment by listening to my nearly daily viewing of Bonnie Tyler's music video for Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Oh, yeah.
Off her 1983 album, Faster Than the Speed of Night. Now, the video, for those who have not seen it, is one of the most alarming, disturbing, and inappropriate things ever to be put on film.
Oh, yeah, it's terrifying.
I do recommend watching it. However, be warned, if you do, you will only have 7 days to get someone else to watch it.
That's right.
Have you guys seen this video?
Yeah. It's so bizarre. And then there's somebody made a parody of it. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's very, very funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
But it's a very strange video. Anyway, while listening to the lyrics, turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit lonely that you're never coming round. Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit tired of listening to the sound of my tears. A light went off in my head. Today I thought we could talk about Sufi Islam and the very strange offshoot, the whirling dervishes.
Yes.
Oh, yay. They're turning around a lot.
A to B, obviously.
Yeah.
So first let's talk a little bit about Sufi Islam for context. When I first started reading up on this, I had assumed that Sufism was a distinct standalone offshoot of Islam, like, say, the Alawites that we talked about back in episode 145. But this is not the case. The truth is actually more interesting and yet somehow more boring.
As the truth so often is.
Pronunciation warning. I'm going to say a lot of Muslim words wrong here, and I would appreciate that if there's going to be a Twitter jihad, that it be directed at Uncles Mark and Dan. After all, they're the ones who brought me on the show in the first place, so it's all their fault.
It's only fair.
That's right. Everything Doug does after that is our fault.
At its most basic level, Sufism, also known as Tasawwuf, is simply very conservative Islam. It is sometimes referred to as Islamic mysticism, although I don't think it fits easily into what we would define as mysticism. The word Sufi, by the way, roughly translates to one who wears wool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Woolly Islam.
Exactly. This is probably a reference to their refusal of the creature comforts of the world, which we'll talk about. Wearing wool back in the old Islamic days without anything underneath it was somewhat unpleasant, as it is now.
Yeah.
Muslims believe that they are on a pathway to become close to God in paradise, but that they can grow close to him here in this life as well. Sufis seek to please God by working to restore the state of fitra, or original disposition of all humans when we were born. So basically, the idea that children are born completely blank, completely innocent, completely guileless, bereft of ego, etc.
I don't know. Have you ever met a baby?
Not recently.
Yeah, assholes.
Not in the last year.
Right?
So the idea of Sufi Islam is to get back to that state of fitra. So to Sufis, the outer law consists of rules pertaining to worship, transactions, marriage, judicial rulings, and criminal law, what is often referred to broadly as kanun. The inner law of Sufism consists of rules about repentance from sin, the purging of contemptible qualities and evil traits of character, and the adornment with virtues and good character. Basically, all the laws and institutions of Islam are there to deal with the contact between Muslims and the outer world, while Sufism is meant to turn the eye internal and concerns itself with the spiritual journey towards God.
Okay.
Therefore, pretty much any Muslim, whether Sunni or Shia or anything else within greater Islam, can be a Sufi without having to abandon their specific identity.
Interesting.
Yeah, so you can be a Sunni, Shia, Alawite even, and be a Sufi, and maintain that other identity.
Based on having a lot of wool.
Exactly. The more wool, the better. However, at least historically, Sufism has been made up primarily of Sunnis. So just a quick reminder, I'm sure everyone knows this, but the Sunni sect is the branch of Islam that followed Muhammad's friend and father-in-law, Abu Bakr, after his death, rather than his son-in-law and cousin, Ali ibn Abi Talib, which became the hereditary branch of Islam known as Shia. So Sunnis make up something like 85 or 90% of all Muslims, so they've made the right choice going with that sect, I suppose.
Which one of them is the Brigham Young? I forget.
A Sunni.
Okay.
We're the Brigham Young, we're the Sunnis of the Mormon religion out here. It's literally freaking true. However, over time, Sufism made inroads to all branches of Islam, even though it started with the Sunnis. So Sufis are typically pretty ascetic. That is to say, they go even further than many conservative Muslims in eschewing the things of this world. Specifically, they endeavor to practice only the form of Islam that was practiced by Muhammad. In some cases, this means restricting their diet, clothing, language, and actions to those that would have been available to Muhammad and nothing that came after. Famously, one of the founders of Sufism, Bayezid Bastami, is reported to have been so devoted to Muhammad that he refused to eat a watermelon because he could not establish whether Muhammad had ever eaten one.
Oh my God!
And that's a fairly common thing in Sufism, especially older Sufism. One can imagine how difficult this lifestyle would be in the modern world. So not all Sufis take it to that extreme. Sufism was born very early in Islamic history, within years of the death of Muhammad. Indeed, Sufis believe that Muhammad himself was the first Sufi. Since Sufism does not exactly have a distinct belief system than Islam, but is just more of a devout version of it, it thrived along with Sunniism as the Islamic religion went multi-continental. Sufism has established itself throughout time and space with the establishment of various Sufi orders. These orders have built mosques, housing, and schools to preach Sufism. Think of them very much like monastic orders of the Catholic Church. It's a really apt comparison. These orders exist all over the world, and out of love for you, dear listeners, I am not going to try and pronounce any of their names, except one in a minute. One One of their beliefs that has caused some friction with the greater Islamic world is their veneration of Muhammad. And that sounds strange. Muhammad is such a towering figure in all of Islam, obviously.
Right.
But Sufis take it to such a level that it can easily be seen as polytheism. I mean, it practically is. That
do they create him as kind of a Christ-like figure or
yes,
beyond? Yeah.
Much more like, so, we atheists looking in from the outside obviously think of Catholicism and Mormonism as polytheistic because of that, the Godhead, Virgin Mary, et cetera, et cetera. And Islam prides itself in being, extremely monotheistic.
Right.
Allah is God and Muhammad is his prophet. There's a hierarchy. One is God. One is, his chief. A man. Right. Sufis take it pretty far. Muhammad is pretty much, in some forms of Sufism, he kind of eclipses Allah.
Wow.
I think that's you got to give props to anybody who can make other Muslims go, dude, you're taking this love of Muhammad a little too far.
I'm sick of hearing about Muhammad, dude. Yeah, no, truly. So that's caused some friction over time. Another belief is in something called, I don't know how to say this, Dhikr. It's spelled Dhikr. And it's an umbrella term for various and sundry repetitious devotional acts that are meant to center the mind and focus more on God. These run the gamut from, ritual prayer, which all devout Muslims are supposed to participate in, although, again, Sufis take it to a bit of an extreme. Repetition of supplications from the Hadith and the Quran to singing and even forms of dancing, which we'll get to. Depending on the specific dhikr, I don't want to say it, these activities can start to look a bit odd. And again, this has been a source of some friction within the larger Muslim world, where we kind of look at, like, say, the mosques, Muslims praying in the mosque in Medina or Mecca, 5 times a day seems very ritualistic and very rote. They kind of look that way at Sufis who take all of these rituals to this extreme.
Interesting.
As Wahhabism, which Uncle Mark talked about back in episode 51, took hold in the heart of Islam in the 18th and 19th century, they did not take kindly to Sufism, partly because of the aforementioned rituals and beliefs, but also because a central characteristic of Wahhabism is not to get along with anybody.
Right. They're prickly.
They are a bit prickly. Ataturk also banned them in Turkey in 1925 because they represented a major obstacle in his now seemingly failed effort to secularize the country.
Right.
And Iran has suppressed them in the last several decades as well, since they refused to recognize the government's primacy. But by and large, as far as Islamic history goes, they haven't fared too badly.
So they're almost like Jehovah's Witnesses of Islam, in that they don't recognize like nationality. Is that what you're saying, or they don't?
The Islamic regime of Iran has kind of tried to supplant a lot of religious authority with their own, and Sufis have no interest in that.
Right.
So wherever that has been the case, but in most Islamic republics have not exactly gone to the extreme that the Iranian regime is trying to get to. Right. So Sufism has been by and large accepted, but it's more of just I was trying to struggle for a way to think about it, and I kept coming back to Opus Dei. It's almost just an extremely devout form of Islam. It doesn't have a lot of beliefs that are distinct, just a lot that are taken really far.
Right.
Huh.
So this at last brings us to the infamous whirling dervishes. It's no surprise that in Orthodox Islam, dancing, particularly women dancing, is verboten. However, there is an odd workaround that certain Sufi sects have developed to allow them to engage in what I guess you could call dancing. As I mentioned before, a large part of the Sufi practice is dhikr. For most Sufis, this takes the form of repetitions of divine names of God or other aphorisms from the Quran. However, for a few Sufi orders, primarily in Turkey, their practice of dhikr has been spun up. Wait for applause. Okay. These Sufi, mostly the Mevlevi order, engage in ritual spinning, which they believe helps them clear the mind and focus on God. Some believe that this ritual of spinning is symbolic of the planets in the solar system orbiting the sun, but because that, this is from the 8th century Islamic world, and I don't think they had that complicated view of cosmology. This is not generally accepted. The spinners.
Well, I know that Islamic astronomy was far ahead of the West for a long time.
Truly.
Yeah, their understand. I think they always believed in the heliocentric. Where the heliocentric model, where the Europeans rejected it for a long time, right?
It seems like this idea that this is somehow symbolic of the rotation of the sun or the Earth around the sun is been added on after.
Interesting.
The spinners or dervishes typically wear a giant, and I mean giant, camel hair's hat, which is meant to represent the tombstone of the ego.
It's like a big fez, right? Big, beautiful,
big, huge fez. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. They also wear long skirts, which are typically white, but can be brightly colored, which is to represent the shroud of the ego. So the ego is being put, to death and superseded. Most Turkish dervishes stick with the traditional white skirts to represent purity and piety, but some of the African sects, particularly Egyptian dervishes, use extremely colorful skirts, with the color scheme like a Scottish tartan, representing their particular order.
Okay.
When these guys get going, there is a very distinct kaleidoscope thing going on.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. Then they spin clockwise with their right arm directed to God, so pointing up, and their left hand held out in front of them, supposedly turned toward the earth. However, they will usually focus their vision on their left hand, which is one of the ways they are able to spin for such prolonged periods of time without losing balance or vomiting. So it's a tactic. Once the ritual starts, several men engage in the spinning at once, while traditional music is played on traditional Islamic instruments. The kind of droning reed horns and the repetitious hi-hat cymbals definitely lend to the trance-like state they're going for.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever seen it, if you've never seen it, I highly recommend going onto YouTube and watching a couple videos of it.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yep. And while there, why not check out Total Eclipse of the Heart? Come on, people. I only have 2 days left. The longer one whirls, the closer they get to God. So that's what they believe. Most dervishes shoot for about the hour mark, which in and of itself is fucking crazy. After 12 months of quarantine, I can't remember doing anything for an entire hour.
They can spin like that for an hour?
That's what they shoot for. That's what they shoot for.
That's insane.
The longest whirling performance on record was 4 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
These days, if I'm in a swiveling chair, I get a little queasy.
Exactly.
Let me ask a quick question, Doug, and I don't know if I'm making an assumption here, but because the term whirling dervish is something from my childhood that I remember, I'm assuming it's probably a racial slur now.
It's actually not. It's not.
Okay.
Dervish, the term dervish is referring to, it's like a beginner in the path towards God is a dervish. And so it's perhaps shockingly, and I don't know if this is universally true, but the term whirling dervish is not necessarily an epithet.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can make it one. Let's go. Let's work towards that.
Patreon goal.
This practice was first established in the mid-13th century, so it's been around for a while. And during the moments that Islam and Christianity were not at war, it has been a source of fascination in the West. And so inevitably, it has become a tourist attraction and revenue stream.
Sure.
Although many of the most pious practitioners do not perform for tourists, in the high tourist areas of the Middle East, say like Turkey, not so much Yemen, one can go and watch a dervish performance. The dance form has been adopted by some non-Islamic communities, but mostly as a tourist attraction. It has even made its way, of course, into the New Age movement as a form of meditation and stress relief.
Of course it has.
Of course. It's easy to see why some would imbue this with some form of spiritual power or mysticism. It sure looks weird. And even for the observer, the seemingly unending twirling accompanied by primitive trance music is enough to be somewhat disassociative. I can only imagine what the practitioners experience. However, at its heart, it's just spinning. So let's end where we began with the immortal words of Bonnie Tyler. Once upon a time there was light in my life, but now there's only love in the dark. Nothing I can say. A total eclipse of the heart.
Oh, there you go.
I really like how you tied that all up with a bow at the end.
You're welcome. It's
not just a completely random pop culture reference.
I believe in the craft.
Yeah, I think I've seen it. The great one of the greatest perpetrators of cultural appropriation of all time, who goes by the name simply Madonna. I think not only stealing people's cultures, but stealing the children of people's cultures. Like, hasn't she like Angelina Jolied a bunch of adopted kids? Anyway, but in one of her videos, I remember there was like a dervish thing, and it's very beautiful, but
Yeah, it's
she just
beautiful.
goes around the world stealing people's shit.
I expected it to be. I don't know what I expected. I thought there was. I hate to say it. I thought there was more to it, but there is. It's just one of the many kind of ritual practices that they just do to clear their heads.
And we're just gonna, just so you know, our next Patreon goal, if we hit it, all three of us will, for a YouTube video, see how long we can go before one of us vomits.
It'll be a very short video.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
there you go.
All right. Well, let's spin out of here.
Well, boys, as shocking as it always is, people seem to like our show. Some of them, definitely not all.
Yeah.
Some
people hate it.
Quicksand likers notwithstanding, there are people who really appreciate what we put out there. For instance, Peter in Hawaii just gave us a 5-star review.
Oh.
Well, his review is titled 5 stars, of course. And then he says 6 stars, in fact. Ever since the episode in which the interstitial stinger stopped jolting me from sleep. Good call, uncles.
Now, I don't know if that's a good thing that he sleeps through our episodes and doesn't want to be wakened.
It feels a little backhanded on that compliment.
That was a very controversial decision that our editor Cody kind of made on his own, and not everybody was down with it. But
I personally liked the original myself.
I could go either way. The hubbub has died down. Let's just say.
Okay. Well, now it's back up and running. The controversy lives on.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you would like to give us 5 stars, please do. If you'd like to give us 4 stars, please give us 5 stars.
Yes.
That's the way the math works. We're gonna continue with spooky math.
Always round up.
Always round up to 5 stars unless 10 are available, in which case you have to do
round up to the nearest 5.
But that's not the only way that people show us that they love us. That's one of the great ways. But some people actually have a little bit of extra money that they can send our way, and they do. They go to howtoheretic.com. They click on the support us thingy, and that sends them to Patreon or to PayPal, whichever. And we have some folks to thank. So thank you to Janice, first of all, and Uncle Mark. I'm going to make you give a saint to Barbara.
To Barbara. Barbara is already a saint, of course. Everybody knows that. A Santa Barbara.
Everybody. That's
but
right.
Even saints need saints, guys. You know what I mean? Everybody needs somebody. There's a lid for every pot. So, Barbara, I think you are under the forever protection of Saint, so long as you keep paying us, of course, of Saint Super Vegas, Super Vegas, the Meek of Fishguard, which is a lovely town in Wales. And Saint Super Vegas is the patron saint of people who are very loyal to their Action outerwear brands. She's also the patron saint of eels of every sort, and of apple pandowdy as well. Yeah.
Well, delicious. Both the eels and the dowdy. You
and the outerwear. I think that's quite a weekend adventure.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. Well, thank you guys so much. Again, give us 5 stars wherever you can give them. Go to howtoheretic.com and find the support thing to show us some monetary love. And we love you.
We sure do. Stay safe and see you on the other side.
Uncle Mark.
Yes.
It just so happens that I happen to know your mother's maiden name and your birthday.
Oh,
wow.
So I was wondering if you would be so kind as to send me your PIN number. You can just read it on air.
If I read it on air, but then we do like a funny sound effect between each number, I think that's fine, right?
Just a bunch of boner noises.
Yeah. Yeah. You probably have my PIN numbers as well, so.
Probably. Well, some numbers are more important than others.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Speaking of it, I'll start with an anecdote, if I may.
Please.
A few weeks ago, I went for a socially distanced walk in the Salt Lake City Cemetery.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is one of my favorite places to go. I know Uncle Mark, you enjoy a good walk among the dead as well.
I do. It's a little tore up right now there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of trees that are down.
We had an inland hurricane last August, September?
Just to put a cherry on 2020 for us.
Yeah, it just thrashed a bunch of places, including the Salt Lake
just literally
Cemetery.
upended a bunch of trees there, and those trees took a lot of headstones with them. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that place. It has a gorgeous view of the valley. It's frequented by wildlife coming out of the mountains. I see deer there all the time, but this last time we saw a coyote.
Oh,
That was
wow.
kind of cool. And it also has some very interesting grave markers.
Yeah, it does.
Now, I took my friend to see the graves of several Utah governors, a whole slew of famous dead Mormons. But what I knew I wanted to save for last was a tiny, unassuming headstone flush with the ground so it can be a little tricky to track down. It's not a famous person who's buried there. It's just a woman named Lily Gray. Bedecked with carved flowers, the pinkish granite headstone has her name, the dates of her birth and death, and one small inscription, and I'll bet one or both of you knows what it says.
I do. I can't remember it exactly, but it's something to the effect of victim of the 666 beast or something.
Victim of the Beast, 666.
Right.
It's the weirdest damned thing you could ever see.
And people aren't exactly sure why her husband did that, right?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. There's a lot of there's only sketchy info about any of them, but yes.
But every 16-year-old in the state of Utah has been there at one point or another.
Yes,
Right.
indeed.
Yeah.
So Lily Gray. We'll take you there if you ever come visit us in Salt Lake, you guys. So anyway, today we're gonna solve the mystery of the number of the beast. What we're talking about here is the last verse of chapter 13 of the psychotic fever dream that is the Book of Revelation. For more on that, please revisit Uncle Doug's two-part explication of the whole crazy book,
Which
in
will help you
episodes-
make sense of all of it.
Right. It will. You'll be totally out of the darkness
At
once
last,
you've heard it.
Revelation explained.
Yeah, exactly. That's episodes 58 and 60. I actually re-listened to both of those and found it fucking hilarious, and I want somebody to make an animation out of our discussion of that. Please, somebody do that.
Books will be eaten.
Yes, indeed. Anyway, chapter 13, verse 18 is referencing a beast. It's tricky to determine which beast, as there are two mentioned in that chapter. 3 if you count the dragon that, quote, gave authority to the first beast, but whatever. Beast the first is a sea beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. It looked like a leopard, you know, those 7-headed leopards that you see all the time, with the feet of a bear and the mouth of a lion. Beast number 2 is an earth beast, which isn't as creatively described, but is said to have the horns of a lamb, which, after wasting a lot of time down a very stupid rabbit hole, I'm pretty sure isn't a thing. Adult sheep have horns, not lambs. Anyway, it spoke like a dragon. There you go. Make of that what you will. Beast number 2, his whole job is to make everybody worship beast number 1. He's the hype man. Now, verse 18, which is the last verse of the chapter, refers to one of the beasts, and it reads thus: "Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man, and his number is 666. That is from the New American Standard Bible, which is a version that focuses on literal translation of the original text.
Was that his number because back then there were so few people that had phones, you only needed 3 digits?
You only needed the 3 digits.
Yeah.
It's like
That
when
was actually his social
Jerusalem
security
666, please.
Exactly.
That's right.
That's when, like, Mr. Burns had to put in his place of birth, and he said, Pangea.
That's right.
Exactly. Now, the New American Standard Bible, from which that particular quote came, hits many of the important notes. I literally looked at more than a dozen different translations of that one verse because as the ding-dongs each present their stupid interpretations of the scripture, a granular look at certain phrases becomes frustratingly necessary.
Right.
For instance, the first phrase, translated in the NASB and in the King James and the American Standard Version, etc., as, "Here is wisdom," which seems to indicate that the verse itself is wise. But other translations, like the New International Version and the Revised Standard Version, start with, "This calls for wisdom," as in, you'll need wisdom to discern this. Then there's the number.
Those are very different.
Those are very different.
Yeah.
Then there's the number itself. Sometimes it's rendered as 666, or in King James's lofty version, 666, because they were fancy. That is to say, they've written it out in words, SIX, etc. Sometimes it's written as the numeral 666. Why is this important? Well, truly it isn't. None of this is important, but here's the thing. 666 is actually different from 666. 666 is one number. 666 could be three numbers spoken back to back to back. Those are two very different concepts, and going back to the original Greek, this is actually the single number 666. We'll get to that, but that's just one of the things you need to know. Other disagreements between the translators revolve around the Greek word psiphizo, don't at me, which we translated earlier to calculate, but other translations say count the number of the beast or reckon the number of the beast. But that word can also mean vote, so maybe we all get to vote on whether that's the right number or not. Anyway, incidentally, it might not be the right number. As Uncle Mark alluded to back in those Uncle Doug segments of Revelation, there is some doubt. One of the earliest extant versions of Revelation that we have is a bunch of scraps known as Papyrus 115, which dates back to the 3rd century. One of those torn up pieces of garbage has bits of our little scripture on it and has the number as 616.
Yeah, I knew I'd heard that somewhere. That there is disagreement.
That's right.
Yeah.
So there's that. Maybe it's that. Who knows?
Yeah, it's only 50 difference. Like it's not that big a deal.
Right. It might make a huge difference because whatever that stupid number means, it's probably really important to know what the number actually is. But
and it's not like a social security number. It's just 3 digits.
It's just that's right. Also in dispute in the various translations are whether 666 is the number of a man, meaning of a specific person, or whether it's the number of man, or sometimes translated a human number, meaning it applies to everyone or represents humanity or is like humanity somehow. So, with all of those textual disputes in place, let's look at a few ways that people have calculated what that number means. Now, back in episode 140, I covered one of the silliest ways people think about the mark of the beast. That is, that Bill Gates conspired to put a tiny microchip into the COVID vaccine and something 5G wireless towers ... profit.
Right.
Oh, it burns.
This is all ridiculous on its face for many reasons, not the least of which being that the, quote, logic of it, that it follows, is dozens of conspiracy steps away from the original fears that, packaging barcodes or RFID chips would be the mark of the beast. And now none of it's even remotely related to Scripture anymore. So whatever. Now, to be clear, the Scripture just before verse 18 says that the mark of the beast will be the name of the beast or his number on your hand or forehead. Microchip, obviously. You just have to know how to interpret the metaphor, obviously.
And could you be a little more specific, or a little less, I suppose? It's either going to be on my hand or my forehead, and it's either going to be his name or his number.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. It's a riddle. It's a fun riddle to solve, everybody. Huh. But let's get away from the real loony stuff and just get into some things. Here's another explication of that number that's pretty common. Remember how this number is the number of man? Mm-hmm. 6 represents humanity because man was created on the 6th day, where 7 represents God because it represents completeness and perfection. And I saw this quite a few times. Why is 7 the number of completion? Go fuck yourself. Or at least that's the standard Christian pastor's blog answer, because they never explain it. They just say that it's true, and that's the end of that. Anyway, in the ancient Hebrew, according to these guys, if you want to exalt something a lot, you say it 3 times, like in Isaiah when the seraphim sang, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts." So,
or
if
Beetlejuice.
The numbers, what's that?
Or Beetlejuice.
Right, exactly. So, if the number 6, if 6 is the number of humans, and you say it 3 times, then 666 is obviously sort of the apex of humanity. Except that, as I said earlier, we're not talking about 3 6s. We're talking about 666. The way it's written in Greek or Hebrew is what makes this clear. The Greek 666 is 3 different letters, which we'll get to this, but they use letters for their numbers. So there is nothing repeated 3 times.
Oh, so God.
We'll just ignore that one. Next, another explanation for the numbers. For the number relates to all the way back to 1 Kings in the Bible, chapter 10, where King Solomon receives 666 talents of gold in a single year. Now, that's a lot of gold. Talents are like over 100 pounds. So,
oh, jeez.
What does that have to do with the number of the beast? Well, the year that Solomon received those 666 talents was the year he turned his back on the Lord. So, 666 is the number of apostasy. It's a stretch, but okay, sure. What's really weird is
Uncle Dan, can I ask you a quick question?
You can try.
So, in the year that he turned his back on the Lord, he also got paid $1 gazillion.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah, exactly.
All right.
Prosperity gospel, ahoy.
Yeah, there's a great life lesson in that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where's my money?
Where's my money?
Right? Oh, man. What's really weird is how many people are certain that 666 is the devil's number or the Antichrist, because it's not. It's very clear in the book that it's the number of one of these 2 very specific beasts. Now, there may be a little confusion about which of them, but it's definitely one of the 2 discussed in that chapter. And we know more. Let's go back 2 verses to verse 16, which I mentioned before. And he causes all the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the free and the slaves, to be given a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads. And he decrees that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, the number of his name, what could that mean? Well, it turns out that can only mean one of a pretty narrow number of things. And the obvious and almost certain answer is gematria, if you're into Hebrew, or isopsophy, forgive me, if you like Greek. They basically are the same concept, because both Hebrew and Greek, and Latin for that matter, used letters for their numbers. You could, because they did that, you could have some fun with that. You could, for instance, take your girlfriend's name and add up all the letters in it as numbers, and boom, you have the number of her name, and then you can call her 437 now instead of Darla. What a fun little code. So
it's just kind of numerology in a way.
Kind of, but even simpler than that.
Yeah.
It's just numbers equal, numbers, certain letters equal numbers in the ancient Greek and Hebrew.
Right.
All the letters, I think all of them had a corresponding number. So then you just add it up. So when the scripture says that the mark of the beast is either the name or the number of his name, well, it's pretty definitely that they're talking about.
Gotcha.
And that's neat, right? So when it comes, we'll be able to identify him by adding up his name to get the number 666. Except that we don't use letters as numbers anymore, so we'll have to transliterate his name into Greek, or is it Hebrew, to figure it out, which is weird, because you'd think that we'd all just know who the beast was by the bear paws and all of the heads.
And the eyeballs and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the beast is probably a metaphor, as is most of the book of Revelation, we hope. And since the book predicted the terrifying end of the world, and the end hasn't happened yet, most Christians are forced to believe that the metaphor is about a time that is yet to come, or that is here. But that's not likely true. What's far more likely true is that John the Revelator, the guy hiding in a cave writing this crazy screed, was talking about his own time, and the metaphor was about the great beast of that time if you were a Christian. Well, what's a multi-headed beast that enslaves people, kills the saints, forces folks to speak blasphemies? Well, to John, it's the Roman Empire.
Right.
The heads are likely the emperors, and the worst of them, the one John hated the most, well, this calls for wisdom. If you look at a Greek coin from the time, you'll see a face on it, and it will be inscribed with the name Neron Kaiser, a Greek transliteration of Nero Caesar. So, now you can't just slander Nero, because you'd get your head cut off. So you got to use a code, and, it's got to be a code that your fellow Christians will understand, but
And hopefully the Romans won't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you take those sounds and you make them Hebrew. It's not the most clever cipher in the world, but we're talking about a crazy guy, so it's probably as good as he's going to get.
Yeah.
Now you add up the letters in the Hebrew version of Neron Kaiser, and what do you get? 412. No, you get 666. Obviously, doy. And
Really?
since the word translated as, since the word in, the word in the Bible that is translated as mark, as in mark of the beast, was often used to mean imprint or the markings on a coin, it would make sense that John would be mad that you couldn't do commerce except by using the money marked with Nero's face and name.
Huh. That makes sense.
Dollars and cents, that's right. So I would understand if you decided that even that explanation sounded a little too tortured. But I promise you, it is an order of magnitude simpler than any of the explanations that you get about modern propositions. Like, for instance, the one that author Stephen Kirk uses to make 666 represent the, quote, mindset of socialism, leading to his inescapable conclusion that the Antichrist is, in fact, Barack Obama. Or last year during our presidential election...
That socialist who bailed out the banks. Yes, exactly.
Right, exactly. Or last year during our presidential election when Dilbert cartoonist and certified right-wing wackadoodle Scott Adams tweeted that it was, quote, probably just a coincidence, but when you divide 2020 by 666, you got the number to text the Biden-Harris campaign. Anyway,
that's probably, it's probably a coincidence, but...
It's probably just a coincidence.
Yeah.
But, worth pointing out anyway.
Well, hasn't...
Hordes...
So,
okay,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say, hasn't most scholarship already kind of concluded that the Book of Revelation was about that John of Patmos's contemporary time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
it's the more you read it with that in mind, the 7 heads being different.
The symbolism becomes far less mysterious.
It's still pretty fucking obtuse. There's a lot of stuff that you're just never going to get a handle on, probably because he was crazy.
It's like Daniel's dream, right? It was just contemporary politics, geopolitics.
Yeah.
Okay, I just to check the math on that, Dan. So apparently the Biden number for the Biden number for the campaign was 30330, but 2020 divided by 666 is 3.0330330 forever.
Yeah. So it wasn't exact, but like
Doug, you're not using cartoonist math.
right? You got to get a little more Dilbert with it.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Now, Christian conspiracy theorists are putting in just hours in their basements learning rudimentary Hebrew to find new ways to make their current favorite object of scorn into the beast of Revelation.
Right.
Like when the delightful nutball Christine Week went viral with a video about how Monster Energy drink, whose slogan, I'll remind you, is Unleash the Beast, clearly has 3 of the Hebrew letters Vav to make their M, and since Vav can mean 6, boom, 666, nailed it. An energy drink is the beast that will bring about the apocalypse? Anyway.
I love that video.
Yeah,
I
it's a great
unabashedly
video.
love that video. But I also just love the idea that, like, what is the point of this?
Right.
What is Monster Energy up to?
Right. She's caught them.
Yeah.
Right.
At what? Where's the end game? What have you figured out here? And it's actually a fun little, fairly convincing little demonstration that she has, if there was any point to it,
But,
which there
mostly
ain't.
because she is utterly convinced.
She is. She has it all broken down. I highly recommend it. Maybe we'll try and track down that video and put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Google it yourself. Anyway, no matter how you interpret it, the number has scared the bejeebus out of Christians for 2,000 years. And often when it pops up, they get spooked. Now, Ronald Reagan, for instance, when he left office, retired to a house in Bel Air at 666 St. Cloud Road. They had the address changed to 680, which I think was just a ruse to throw us off the scent because he was obviously the Antichrist himself, as each of his names, Ronald Wilson Reagan, has 6 letters. He is 666.
Boom.
Here's a fun one. Until 2017, if you took a Finnair flight from Copenhagen to Helsinki, which has the airport code HEL, you'd be taking flight 666 to hell. You hear that, Taru? Your country is satanic. The airline denied switching the flight number because of superstition, but, I mean, come on. Yeah, that's why you did it.
Yeah.
New Mexico's Route 491 wasn't always called that. As late as 2003 was when they changed it from Route 666.
Bummer. How fun is it to drive on Route 666? It's awesome.
Right?
Through the desert.
Right?
That's great.
Yeah. One of their spokespeople said something like, we've kicked the devil out. Good riddance. And I was just like, okay, but it's not the devil, though. Have you even read the book? It's a beast.
No.
So I say, all of you heretics out there, embrace that number.
Whatever the fuck it means.
Whatever the fuck it means. Look, they don't know what it means, but they're scared to death of it. So go scare some Christians. I have to admit.
With a coin of Emperor Nero.
Right, exactly.
Do you remember that Tom Hanks movie, the Burbs, back in the 90s or 80s?
Yeah.
Very funny, underrated movie. But at one point, they were going to that. They suspected their neighbors were murderers. And the address was 669, and they finally got up the courage to knock on the door, and the number flipped around. The number flipped around, and bees just started shooting out of the wall.
You know, I have my own 666 issue here, which is I graduated from high school on 6/6/1986.
Ooh.
And I can't remember at what level of seriousness this conversation was, but there was conversation about moving it a day forward or backward.
Oh, my God.
Right.
Well, I mean, on June 6th, 2006, A lot of mothers were freaked out. They did not want to have their babies on that day.
My God. I think it'd be hilarious. What a great story for your kid to tell.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
Damien
That's a
Thorne.
fantastic birthday, and nobody's going to forget it. So there you go.
Exactly.
I will admit that I got a little thrill when I got my randomly selected license plate for my current car, and right there in the middle, the only numbers on the plate? That's right. The mark of the number of the name of Nero.
You drive a haunted Chrysler Sebring or whatever that is.
I do.
So-
I'm hoping, I have a friend who also has 666 on her license plate, and she loved it because she was hoping that if, a thief came to steal her car and saw it, maybe they'd be Christian enough to just leave it alone.
You're hoping for a good Christian thief at that point. So
There you go.
all right.
Well, there it is, 666.
All right.
Right
Love
on.
it. Love it. Live it. Learn it.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's show.
If you spin you right round, baby, right round, let us know about it. You can send an email at howto@howtoheretic.com.
Or if you're some kind of weirdo that likes kneeling on people's chests in the middle of the night, you can leave us a voicemail about it, 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. Also tell me about it on Twitter at HowToHeretic.
And as always, thanks to our incredible patrons.
And thanks to our beast without number, Cody Layton, for editing the show.
And thanks to all of you, friends, for tuning in.
Bye-bye, friends.
Ta-ta!